2 burgers and 2 Strato Shakes. You having fun, Judy?
Oh, gosh, am I? Imagine me out on a date with Jet Screamer. Yikes!
What's up?
Somebody was peeking in at us.
Oh, probably one of my fans.
But this one looked like my father.
Relax. I get 'em all ages.
You're listening to the Mike Cara radio program, Eye on the Nation.
Well, welcome back to our next edition of the Mike Cara radio program, Eye on the Nation. We definitely have our Eye on the Nation, as always, proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And my next guest is Mr. Joe Rocha, and he is a great bass player, a guitar player, and drummer, and he's got a great studio, Polar Bear Studio, which we'll talk about. And actually, Joe also has on YouTube some instructional videos for the bass, and that's where I actually found out about Joe, because as everyone knows on this show, that I'm actually kind of a beginner to intermediate bass player, and I'm always trying to improve myself, and I'm always I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm always willing to learn new things, and I'm going on YouTube, and I found a lot of different people doing a lot of different videos, and the reason I like Joe's the best is he just seemed like he had a great attitude and he had a great passion, and he just presented it in a way that was almost like if you're a musician, it was just cool, just so cool about it. So it's great, Joe, that you're offering these free tips, and I appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit about, what you do, and a little bit about where your love and passion for music originally came from, and when did you start playing the bass then?
Well, thank you again, Mike, for having me, and I'm excited. And I love talking music, so I'm glad to be here to talk with you. Let's see, where did I start? My love for music and everything I do now came from my dad. My dad is one of my biggest heroes. He was a staple on the Chicago dance scene. Oh, I should say it was Latin dance. He played a lot of Latin dance gigs, and a very well-rounded musical guy. He was a guitar player, a bass player, and we always had music in the house. Luckily for me, we had rehearsals at my house, and there was always music around. There were always instruments for me to like get onto and make all kinds of noise with. So it definitely shaped who I am now. Tons and tons of fun.
Oh, fantastic. And as we were mentioning, Joe, that you play a variety of different instruments, and the main one and the one we kind of want to focus on is bass, but also guitar and drums. And on your website, it says simple keyboard parts. So I know how that is being a musician. You do the best you can. You're not, necessarily a Mozart, but yeah, you can pretty much get by then.
Yeah. I'm very simplistic type chords. I mean, I started venturing out into sevenths and ninths and things. But my keyboard playing is very pedestrian. But I like playing the keyboards because it's very melodic, and I can transfer some of those ideas and chord structures and figures to bass as well.
Fantastic. So yeah, let's talk a little bit, about the bass. And the one thing that I have been doing, and people when I audition for a band, is people have been asking me, do you know your particular scales and this and that, and a lot of times it seems to me that sometimes people, a lot of the people, respectfully, they don't even read music, but I mean, for me, I thought my idea, and I'm sure you agree with this, Joe, is to try to get as much as possible to understand the theory and then apply it to my playing when needed. Yes,
absolutely. I started when I started way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and all that. I was very much the rock and roll mindset. I wasn't thinking about reading. I wasn't thinking about any of that. But I kind of get a couple of raps in the head when I wanted to learn to play violin. And I played violin about 8 years, from grade school into junior high. and absolutely fell in love with the instrument. But I didn't want to learn to read. I was kind of kicking and screaming because I didn't want to do that because I didn't have that kind of sensibility, or at least I thought at the time. I wanted to play Foggy Mountain Breakdown. I wanted Orange Blossom Special. I wanted to play fiddle. I didn't want to play violin. I was playing, Chopin and Mozart and Bach pieces and things. But I was glad I did. I was glad I got into the reading and, like I said, wrapped me on the head. That I carried that on with me, and used that in concert with learning to play guitar. But it was tough. The tough part was I was learning this instrument. I was learning the violin, and then learning to read, and then trying to figure out how to transfer that to guitar and bass and things. So it was another skill set that I was like, wait a minute, violin and the tuning is different, the guitar is different. I'm never going to get this. But I finally got around to making those things work, and I became a really good reader, being a violinist. But unfortunately, I still had that rock and roll mindset. I'm a good reader, but I'm not a sight reader anymore. I used to be, but I definitely think that it's important. It's important for students or people that love music and want to get into playing whatever instrument it is to definitely get the basics. And there was a great quote. I think it was Billy Sheehan, a fantastic bass player, who said you have to know the rules before you can break them. And so I had that in the back of my mind. I was like, yeah, learn what you can about the instrument, the basics, and the basics of reading and stuff, and then it definitely blossoms from there. It is very important.
And the one thing, Joe, that I'm not necessarily struggling with, but I've always never been a big, I've never been a big fill guy. I've never necessarily did a lot of showboating, which a lot of times bands kind of appreciate. But I mean, a lot of times, I think you do kind of want to sometimes, do a lot of fills, take it, make it more melodic. But I know with me, a lot of times, if it sounds good, especially when I'm doing a song, I know a lot of times the bass players kind of go crazy. It's like, okay, but I've always been kind of just get that rhythm down. I mean, but again, it's personal preference then.
Sure, absolutely. I was definitely of that. Like I said, when I was growing up, my dad had tons of stuff on the turntable. We could be listening to the Latin hits of that day, and because I'm from Texas originally, I'm from Brownsville, and we definitely had this. The types of music were called rancheras or cumbias, and they're all forms of Latin dance. And we had that stuff on the turntables, and then in after a couple of minutes, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to some Jimi Hendrix. My dad had everything, or then it was James Brown, or I was definitely into Motown, and way back when didn't even know who the bass players were, but there was something about sitting there listening to, like, say, a Motown hit or something. That was before I even knew who James Jamerson was. And I'm sitting there going, why does this move me? It almost sounds like there's a lot of notes, but at the same time, it was so in the pocket, and so the groove was so deep you couldn't avoid falling into it. And that's what I grew up on. I grew up on the soul hits of the 60s and the 70s, and definitely those players could be flashy at times, but more often than not, they were definitely just pocket players. And that was something that I definitely latched onto. And even in my playing today, I have been known to showboat at times. And then, there's that internal, the internal thing going, play for the music, play for the song. And then I got to get myself back out and go, okay, play for the song. So I can have those things in my back pocket. I do have those flashy things, the Billy Sheehan, the do some tapping and all this kind of stuff, or maybe a Victor Wooten where he slaps, and he's just an incredible player that way. But these guys definitely knew, as I do now, that it's definitely for the song, and I'm definitely that guy that plays for the song and be the rhythm player. But you have those things in your back pocket too.
Right, and I think that, Joe, is one of the things that our audience and myself kind of struggle sometimes is the improv. A lot of times it's like, especially at open mic, we'll see people, they're kind of in their own world. They're kind of playing, whatever. It's in the same key. It does kind of fit. So, I mean, a lot that's the one thing I kind of have to work on, is where you have to feel the music more. And I guess a lot of that is kind of based, which we'll talk about, is on scales and chords and all that. I mean, to just get an improv, or like we're saying, when you just got to do like an improv jam or something.
Right. That's definitely when I do my improv, or when it's solo time. I'm definitely listening to the rhythm and what the song is doing at the time, because I mean, you can definitely have a ballad, and then here comes solo time. And if you're tapping away and you kick on distortion if you happen to have any, it's like maybe that doesn't best serve the song, and you have to take a step back a little bit. But I definitely listen to rhythm, because I'm very much a rhythmic player, and so I listen to what the drums are doing, and that will kind of launch me into that solo area. And definitely knowing the chord or knowing the chords of the song and knowing the key definitely helps, because that you can. I mean, sometimes, like when I'm playing piano, I'll lock myself into chords. That's how, like I said, pedestrian I play. And I also do that with bass at times. I'll lock into what is going on, and then from there, just a little bit of flourish here and there, and hopefully it evolves. It doesn't always for me, but it helps. It helps to know those things, and that's rooted in the basics.
Oh, okay. And I know in my case, Joe, one of the things that I like to do, and, I know that there's tabs, but, when learning the song, especially with the Rolling Stones and all these songs like The Cars and these classic rock, a lot of times what I like to do, and I know a lot of people do this, is they listen to the bass line and then they try to actually get the bass line note for note, because even though it's a cover band, they kind of want to play that. But I mean, there's not a lot of unique. I mean, there doesn't seem like there's a lot of music theory being applied to that method, though.
No, and there isn't. That was, I'd say, a lot of things, like you said, the Rolling Stones, and a lot of the classic rock type stuff was definitely more emotionally based. And they're like, these were kids that probably, when they were kids, like say when Jimmy Page was learning to play guitar. He's like, I'm listening to Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Waters or something, and they're learning something more visceral and not necessarily technique oriented. And they're like, ooh, I feel this, so I'm gonna learn to play it this way. And then of course they eventually forged their own style, but definitely came from more of a feeling standpoint than like a note or some kind of theory based system.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we want to let everyone know, as we mentioned, Joe, that you do these YouTube videos, and and they're fantastic. I enjoy them, and to kind of give people an opportunity to learn a little bit, and tell us a little bit about how you got started doing these videos. Did somebody say, "Hey, Joe, you should do this," or I mean, how did you think about doing this?
It came from, because I've been teaching about 15 years, and I know it may sound silly, but I wanted to be the teacher that no one had. Like when I was growing up, it was very much a sit down, learn this. This is what you do. This is what you have to, and you don't do this. You don't do that. And I always found that to be very stifling. I wanted to have my teachers not only be my mentors, but also be, in some instances, be my friend. Help me out with this, and let's talk music, not necessarily theory, because as most musicians know, on any instrument, it doesn't matter what it is, as soon as theory comes up, you start to shut off. Like, this is the boring part. But I wanted it to be fun, and to not only that, but to relate to other things. It's like, this certain scale sounds like this song, and I never wanted it to be, dull or boring, and so I thought about doing the videos in my way, the way I wanted to be taught. And as I did that, I was talking, as you've seen in the videos, I talk to the camera. I mean, I have some videos that are more based on just watching my hands, but when I'm watching or when I'm talking to someone, I'm talking to them. I'm talking to, I want to be I want to be the fun guy. I want you to have fun doing this. Because if you don't, and everybody knows, as soon as you don't have fun, you'll shut off. So when I started doing the videos, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the fun guy, and I wanted to make sure that you got to learn in a fun way. And that's why that was the impetus of the videos. And fortunately, the people have been very kind, and I appreciate that.
Oh, okay. And now the one thing, Joe, we're talking about different instruments, and I'm sure you've heard this, and a lot of musicians will hear this, is especially when bass players will listen to a bass player and they'll say, that's got to be a guitar player. He's playing the bass. A lot of times you'll hear that where that's basically he's playing the bass like a guitar. I mean that a lot of times that does tend to happen where your passion is lead guitar, and that kind of bleeds through then to the bass then sometimes.
It does. And when I was growing up and I was learning to play bass, I played bass and guitar. Concurrently. I started when I was about 4, and like I said, since my dad had rehearsals at our house and things, I was always picking up the guitar. And then when I get a little bored with that or frustrated, I pick up the bass, or then I go to the keyboards and doing all kinds of stuff. And then just because I wanted to be loud, I'd sit behind the kit and drive my mom crazy. But yeah, so I guess I come by it honest. If you hear like guitar or guitaristic type figures on the bass, it's because I also play guitar. But I definitely dove into being a bass player as I was growing up. So there were, also going back and talking about like Motown and things like that. When you heard James Jamerson play, James was very fluid and moved everywhere. If you listen to some of those old songs and stuff, or old Stevie Wonder, or Graham Central Station, or any of those things, the bass player is moving way more than the guitar player does, and those were the things that I latched onto. But definitely, you can hear my guitar type playing on bass too. But yeah, so when somebody says that to me, I actually say thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's good to know. And as we mentioned, Joe, that you're also a drummer. So as you mentioned in one of your videos, you feel that kind of helps you, because as I know, as being a bass player and being sort of a drummer, that a lot of times you kind of have to be a team. You're kind of supposed to kind of play off of each other. So being both of those, that definitely does help you. In either one of those, then
it sure does. It really, really does, because you get to think about your role. You get to think about your place in the band. And my place has always been in the rhythm section, whether or not it was playing drums or bass or even guitar. You definitely learn to lock in with a drummer. And you've heard bands where it kind of seems disconnected, where it's like, wow, the rhythm's not hitting me, or it doesn't seem like it's together. But the more you do that, the more you lock in with the drummer, and the more you want to be a part of the rhythm section, the better the rhythm section sounds. If you like a couple of examples, like right off top of my head, when you listen to Van Halen, you listen to what the bass and drums are doing. It is so seamless; it's incredibly solid. Or even AC/DC, when you listen to that rhythm section, it's like, oh my goodness, you've never felt anything hit you in the chest like that. And those are my two top examples of a great rhythm section, and that's definitely someone, bass players and drummers listening to each other, or even the rhythm guitar player listening to everything else that's going on. Definitely a plus. Listen to the drummer, and if you get a chance, be a drummer, so you can have that kinship with the rhythm section.
Okay, and now, Joe, the ultimate question that a lot of bass players, have trouble with and they deal with, including me, and that is singing while playing the bass. And the one thing I will say is that's very interesting is I have trouble singing and playing in one of the most simplest bass lines, and yet one of the most complex bass lines I sing, and it's very easy for me. So, it's very interesting how sometimes singing and bass playing really seem like they're connected in weird ways then.
Oh, they are for sure. They are for sure. Sometimes, like you said, sometimes the simplest lines will trip me up, and some of the most complex lines seem fluid enough that I can sing and play over them. But the thing that I do is I try to strip both parts. Okay, learn the bass line first, and then learn as well as you can. Learn both. Learn the vocal line and learn the bass line, and then slowly try to get the two together. Try to mix them and see what happens. Sometimes the vocal line will suffer because the bass line takes precedence sometimes. Or if you really want the words to get out, sometimes the bass line will suffer because you'll be thinking more about what you're trying to sing. I think it's really just slowing it down, and just like anything else, when you're learning something new, or learning a language, or learning any skill, learning complex math or something, that you slowly do those things, and then it becomes a part of what you do. It becomes a part of who you are. But definitely, sometimes the easiest bass lines are the ones that trip me up when I sing. I don't know why. I really don't.
Oh, okay. And now, Joe, we mentioned that, you're involved with some bands. And the one thing I'll say, especially playing with bands, I've found, and again, I'm sure you'll agree with me, and a lot of people, well, again, it depends on the person and band. I have found that if you get in with a very tight band, and I've had the honor and pleasure of playing with two that are the greatest band in the world, and then you're coming in there, it is so much easier, and you could just kind of mesh in there. Unlike if you're playing with a bunch of beginners and you all don't know what you're doing, it seems like that's not as good. But I mean, in my particular case, when I get in with a great band, it's like, boy, this is tight, this is solid. Let me just add a little spice to it here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I love getting myself into situations like that. I've been very, very fortunate that all the bands that I've worked with have those players. They have those people in the band that just make you want to work harder. I always surround myself with people like that. Or even with my students, I try to lead, and make them better players. I love being in those situations. Like I play with a bunch of buddies of mine, and they're a horn band, and we get to play like lots of dance music and Motown and all that stuff, like I mentioned before. And it's definitely a listening and a learning experience, because you kind of have to take a step back and go, okay, well, let me save this pyrotechnic stuff for a little later on, or whatever my spot is, or and all that. And then there's other, like a jam band that I play in, or I play in my band with Sing with the Band, that we play just about everything, because we're a live karaoke machine, really, is what we are. And so we're constantly playing something different. And I've always loved that about the Sing with the Band, because the set list is never the same. We can start with a Frank Zappa tune, and then we'll go to a Frank Sinatra tune. But all those situations make me grow as a player. And I love being in those situations, because you can always learn from all the people that you work with. And I love putting myself sometimes in uncomfortable situations, to where it's like, I got to play a jazz gig. And I was never really I love jazz, but I've never really been a jazz player. And I was very fortunate to hook up with a sax player friend of mine. That's like, come on, try it. I mean, you're fine. I love the way you play. You'll fit right in. I was scared to death. I had never really done that stuff. It's like, walk a bass line? What? What's that? But I finally, I got into it, got into the flow of it, and fortunately, I put myself in those situations. So I love that. I love being in that space.
Okay, Joe, now I want to talk about different basses. And the first thing, I always talk to bass players, and, I say, how could, if I gave you a upright bass right now, could you play? And they always say yes. And I've always wondered, is it so easy as all these bass players claim to kind of move just from, the bass guitar to a regular standard old upright bass?
Oh my goodness, no. No, unless you're a player that played symphonic or something, or that type of thing, to where you learned on the upright and then went to play electric. It's kind of like with my students, when I tell them, they'll come up to me and they'll say, which is easier to learn first? Should I learn acoustic guitar or should I learn electric? And my answer is usually learn the electric. It's a lot more forgiving, because it's easier to, the strings are a lot more, they're a lot easier to play, they're easier to fret, and not only that, playing an electric instrument, there's frets. The frets will keep you in tune. When I first played an upright, I'm like, where do I put my fingers? I had no idea. So I did it a lot by ear, and then I eventually, as I got more into it, I started learning positions. Okay, so here I'm in thumb position, and up here, I'm playing, this certain way, and this is the way I'll play the scale because it's easy to finger this way. But yeah, no, for someone to say that. I don't think that most bass players would really say that, or anyone worth their weight in salt would say that. Oh, it's easy. I can do whatever. Unless you're, say, a John Patitucci or something, someone that played those two instruments concurrently, and he's great on both. Stanley Clarke is another one that comes to mind. Because Stanley was primarily known as an upright player. But he played very fluid on electric as well. But no, I would never have said that. I would never say, "Oh yeah, the upright bass is easy." I learned to play it, and I got to be pretty good at it. But no, it was definitely not easy. And the strings the action is so high. I mean, on some basses, not all, but it's tough to play. It's a very, very demanding instrument. So it's nowhere near as easy as electric.
Oh, okay. Now, Joe, I want to talk about numbers of strings. Of course, when I got my first bass, I decided I'm just going to go with the easiest because it's 4. But a lot of times people have the attitude, well, if I learn on a 6-string bass, then I'll know everything. So when I go to a 5 and 4, it'll be easier. Is that the case, or?
Not always. Not always. Because I learned on 4, just like a lot of players did. This was before the time of, say, like an Anthony Jackson or something, when he designed the contrabass and said, "I want more strings," because he was just that way. Fantastic player, awesome player, and very much a visionary, and decided to create an instrument that never existed. But of course, like I said, when we started on 4, and then we learn our patterns, we know our strengths, we know exactly how to play certain scales and certain positions and all that kind of stuff. And then I started adding strings as I got a little more confident. I was like, oh, let me go buy this 5-string because I want that. I want to hear that low string that I hear on a lot of dance records of the day. I think I got my first 5-string somewhere in early '90s, I think it was. And that's when a lot of synth music, like the end of the '80s, early '90s, you hear a lot of low synth type notes, and we wanted to emulate that. A lot of bass players wanted that low stuff. And then, so then I got the 5-string, but then I noticed I stumbled because I thought the low B string was an E. I'm like, oh, no. And then all my fingerings were changing because I'm like, okay, now I have to be aware of this low string. And oddly enough, it happened with adding a high string too, because I have a 6-string as well. And I wanted to play those John Patitucci lines. I wanted to play Steve Bailey. I had those the really high notes, solo, sax type solo things, and you could play these chordal patterns. And I was like, "Ooh, I want that." And I tripped on that as well because I'm like, okay, tuned in fourths, and being a guitar player, I'm thinking E, E A D G, and then E A D G B E. But on a 6-string, it's tuned B E A D G C. And I was like, oh, okay, so now fingerings had to change, and I had to think differently. I couldn't think like a guitar player. I had to think, okay, well, now this tuning is what it is. I have to learn fingerings and chords to accommodate that. No, I definitely tripped on both sides. As soon as I got a 5-string, oops. I got a 6-string, oops. But I always remembered that, okay, I have the middle 4. That I learned, and I'm good with that. But then, of course, your fingerings change. Depends on where you're playing on the instrument. It's like, oh, I'm going to play this scale this way. Starting on the low B and then ending up on the high C. So yeah, a lot of definitely adjustment when I went from a 4.
Oh, and I understand, Joe. Now basically the most string as you play as far as basses is 6, because I know they have 8 and 12. I mean, what's your opinion on 12 strings? I mean, is that kind of overkill or?
When I heard the 12-string, first time. Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick. I was blown away by the sound of this thing because it in essence it's a 4-string bass with two octave strings for each of the fundamental strings. And when he played this thing, it just sounded like a jet engine was right next to your head. It was just, the sound was so huge. So 12-string, loved it. I don't know what I would use it for. I mean, maybe, as far as for me, if someone asks, say I go into the studio and they say, I want that Tom Peterson sound. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I think I should get the 12-string. But yeah, it's very cool. It's definitely cool for what it is, and I'm all for the innovations and put as many strings as you can on it. There's a guy, Bill Dickens, also a Chicago guy. Bill Dickens plays an 8. He also has a 9 string, and boy, can he play it, because he definitely knows his way around all those strings for sure.
Oh, okay. And yeah, we encourage everyone, Joe, to check out those YouTube videos, because there's a lot of different information, including, fingering and of course, there's always the debate of 3 fingers or 4 fingers, and that's the one thing, Joe, I've always wondered, when on your left hand, when a lot of that goes again to these scales and all this. But I mean, a lot of times for me, it's a little difficult to do the the pinky finger. So my question is, should I try to learn doing it with the pinky, or just continue doing it with the 3 fingers?
I'd say do both. I mean, you definitely have those things that you're comfortable with. And definitely play that. I would never discourage anyone from doing, picking or fingering, other than how they're comfortable. But I also recommend definitely stretching. Stretching out just a little bit further and say, okay, well, I'm going to try a couple of exercises with a finger that doesn't really cooperate with me, and it's usually the pinky. And as I mentioned on one of my finger exercise videos, the ring finger and the pinky of both hands, your left and right hand, they're both connected by the same series of tendons and muscles and things. That's why you don't have that. You don't have that independence that you would with your other fingers. Your other fingers are very independent. First and second finger can you can fly all over the place, but your ring finger and pinky just never seem to. They never seem to do what you want them to do. That's why on my exercise video, I definitely recommend doing that. I mean, you may not always be comfortable doing that or playing patterns with the pinky or even the ring finger, because I know some players will use first, second, and pinky because you get a good stretch that way. But then I've heard the other side where they use 1, 2, and 3 and totally disregard the pinky. But I definitely say do the things that are comfortable. Play the way you play. If you get the notes that you're looking for, then that's good on you that you do that. But I also say go ahead and stretch a little bit. Use the pinky when you can, and I definitely recommend that, because your playing may change, and you may start thinking of different figures that you might not have thought of before.
Okay, Joe, and now I have to ask, because I heard this somewhere, and I want to get your take on it. And the guy basically said that if you're practicing the bass, you should practice no longer than 15 minutes. You should practice 15 minutes at a time, take a break here and there. I mean, what do you think about that?
I say, I've always told my students, if you can get 5 minutes, with the instrument uninterrupted, that's always good time. Because I've heard from different instructors and a lot of different players, they say, well, no, you have to practice for at least an hour. You have to this, you have to that. And my response to that is, you don't have to anything. You don't have to. The only thing I recommend that you should do is just make sure that you have time with your instrument, no matter if it's 5 minutes or 5 hours. But definitely one thing to remember, if you're playing and this can go for anything. I mean, it could be sports or whatever. Play as long as you're comfortable. And if it starts to hurt, definitely back off, walk away. And if you want to come back, do it again. There's no set time for you to do that. So I'm definitely the guy that says, play as long as you want. Play as little as you want, but as long as it's quality time. And don't play to the point of pain.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's good to know. Okay, Joe, as we mentioned that you do a lot of playing, but another thing that you do is you have your own studio. It's called Polar Bear Studio, and tell us a little bit about that and where it's located. And you record a lot of different musicians in your area then?
I do. I'm based in the Aurora Illinois area, so just outside Chicago. And it's mobile, it's portable. My studio is based around the VS series, made by Roland, and it's an all inclusive with faders and the whole mixing platform and the recording gear. Everything is inside this box, this rectangular box. And I have 3 of them. I fell in love with the system. It was just so easy to work. It was very user friendly, very intuitive. And when I got my first one, I started doing my little demos and things. I'm like, this is so much fun. And then it turned into, when my friends heard about it, they're like, oh man, can I record on your recorder? Absolutely. And the more I did that, the more I got. It was a lot of word of mouth, and then it became because of polar bears. Polar bears is something very near and dear to my heart. I love polar bears. There's just something so cool about them. And then it just became the moniker. It became the name of my studio. And I have these, like I said, these recorders, these Roland recorders that it's all digital, and like I said, all included, mixer effects and the whole thing. And then I just started recording bands and people that knew me, some of my students. They said, hey, can I do a demo? And absolutely. I love doing that stuff. I think if I weren't a musician or if I weren't a player, I'd be a producer or engineer, because there's something about the creative process that I just absolutely adore. And it's like, okay, so here's my idea. What do we do with it? We can go this way, and we just start making stuff up as we go along. But yeah, so a lot of the bands around this area, and I love working with the younger people, because I love watching that enthusiasm and them just because it reminds me of me when I first started, and it was like just play for any reason at all and make up anything you want. I just absolutely adore that, and I still get to every now and again, and it's just such a thrill working Polar Bear Studios and me being a part of the creative process. So much fun.
Oh, okay. And you have a website for that?
I do. It's under my name. It's joerocha.com, and you can find me talking about polar bears and talking about my studio. And there's a calendar that gives you my dates of where I'll be playing with Sing with the Band, which is the live karaoke, or with some other friends of mine. I do a lot of sub gigs as well, and it's just so much fun because it puts me in so many different situations, musical situations that I just absolutely adore.
Okay, and also, Joe, that as far as your YouTube videos, people could probably put in your name. And one thing also that I found is that you do check your YouTube account or your videos, and you will respond to questions. So you are active in maintaining that. So if people do have a question, or if they do want to get in touch with you, that you will see that comment then posted.
Absolutely. I love talking with people all over the world. Really, I've found out that I have subscribers in Germany, Hungary, Spain, just all over the place, and it's been such a thrill to talk with people, and I want to. If I get the chance, I want to just hook up with people around the world and just sit and talk music. If I were able to, I want to get on a plane, go to Germany, hang out with some people in Germany. Let's talk bass. Let's have fun. Going out to anywhere, name it. If I have subscribers there, I want to go there. I definitely want to do that. I want to be out there and have fun and talk music with anybody. And I do that on the on YouTube as well. I just sit there and we'll just talk. We'll just talk about, hey, what do you got a question about? Oh, the scale or these exercises that you were doing. Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about that. And it's just so much fun. So much fun.
Oh, okay, Joe. Appreciate your time. Any final thoughts or anything else you'd like to mention?
I would like to say that if you have the drive to learn music, do it. Just do it, because it's so much fun. It's very enriching. It's a rewarding feeling to do that. And I want to encourage anybody, even if you've never played an instrument or anything like that, just Just do it. Get a guitar, get a bass, go buy some drums. Like I said, buy some drums so you can annoy your parents. Play keyboards, do anything musical. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Okay, my guest has been Joe Rocha, and you've been listening to the Mike Care radio program, Eye on the Nation, and please catch us again next time.